This is a mess.
Hey spooky friends, welcome back to Kelly Does Stuff and happy Summerween! To kick things off for my Summerween celebrations, I'm going to make a little vignette inside of this lantern that I got at the dollar store. I'm going to feature this cute little fairy skeleton. This is by Ashlyn. I did get it at Michael's, but not recently. This is something that I've had. So I want my base to be styrofoam. I'm just going to use some scrap XPS foam that I had. You can see it's not even, but I don't really care about that. Also, why didn't I just trace the lantern directly on the XPS foam? Honestly, you guys know that I'm just as confused by the things that I do as you are. All right, so I have a general idea of what this is going to look like. You can see from this brilliant sketch that it's going to be a little bit of a rocky structure and then some sort of water element. I'm using a hot wire table to cut out the basic shape of my rock structure, and then I want it to be thinner than this, so I'm going to use the hot wire table again. And you can see that I already cut this. I refilmed this because an issue that I kept having was my phone not recording after I would hit record, and I think the issue was it was so hot, my phone was not sensing me touching the screen to record. Next, I'm going to use a blade to make this look a little bit more like rock. I get a lot of questions on the type of blade that I use. My favorite blade is one where I can adjust the length of the blade. Sometimes it helps to have it a little bit shorter, a little longer. I've seen them called utility knives or box cutter. I'll link the type that I like in the video description. And I'm going to use a rock to add more detail. If you don't have a really lumpy, bumpy rock, you can just roll up some aluminum foil. And all of these details are going to pop when we paint it. So first up, we've got that dark base coat. Let it completely dry. Then we're going to go in with lighter and lighter shades of dry brushing. After I've done a couple shades of dry brushing, I'm going to do a dark wash on the entire thing. This is just black acrylic paint and water. Dab away the excess with a paper towel. You can repeat the process a couple times, and this just really helps add depth and dimension to the piece. When that is completely dry, I will go in with my lightest dry brushing shade. And there were a few areas where I want to accentuate my shadows, so I'm just going in with some black paint. Sadly, my original piece of foam with that beautiful drawing is lost. I think it blew away because I do my projects outside, so we're starting over with a new base. These are some leftover bricks that I have from a previous project, and I decided I wanted the water element to this vignette to be kind of like a reflecting pool. And the little skeleton fairy is sitting on top of the rocks looking down at the pool. let's take a break from working on the inside of our lantern and work on the outside. We gotta spice up this lantern a bit. It's a little too plain, so I'm going to turn this into tree bark, kind of like this scene is in a hole inside of a tree trunk. Now, of course, there's lots of different ways you could create this detail. I'm going to do something a little bit different for this. I'm going to use paper towel strips and some PVA glue and water mixed together. This is a pretty simple process. You just want to apply a layer of your glue and water mixture and then a strip of your paper towel. A sponge brush like this is really helpful for application because it will help smooth away any pattern that you may have in your paper towel. You want to repeat this until the entire lantern is covered, and then you want to do the whole thing again until you've got a couple layers built up. We want kind of a good foundation before we start adding strips that are going to create the detail in the bark. This first step, where we're building up the foundation, I will admit, is pretty tedious. But once you get to the creating the bark part of it, it does become pretty fun. Now you may be wondering, couldn't you just dip strips of paper towel into the water glue mixture? And absolutely give it a shot. If that is your preferred method of creating, I did that once and that was an immediate no for me. It was a texture thing. I did not like the feel of paper towel after I had been dipped in the glue and water, and I didn't really like working with it and trying to apply it to the lantern. So I went with this method. A question that I often get is, why did I use a particular material, or why did I use it in that way? And my answer is usually one of two. One, I'm constantly asking myself, what if I tried this? What if I did it in this way? Just to see if I like working with that material and I like the outcome. The other reason, which is more common, is that I already know I like working with a particular material, so I keep returning to it because the act of using the material and creating with it is fun. And for me, when I'm making a project, it's so much more about the making of it than the finished result. All right, now you can see that I'm really working to create that texture of my tree bark. Not so much branches, but just making it look like the texture on the trunk of a tree. And a key to being successful using this method is making sure that you do have enough water mixed in with your glue. I found that if I was a little too heavy on the glue, my brush would actually stick to that paper towel instead of applying it. You do want to let this completely dry and harden before you paint it. For my base coat, I'm going to do a black wash because we have so many gaps and nooks and crannies and all little spaces and all that bark detail, and the wash will fill that in a bit easier than just paint. And here we go. The process is pretty much the same as we do for all painting. We're going to do dry brushing. We'll do the dark wash again at some point, lighter shades of dry brushing. You can continue doing this for as long as you want or as little as you want until you get a look that you like. For the next lightest shade, I am going to go with this coffee bean mixed in with some white. I liked this color better than mixing that original brown with the white. That just was too like pinky brown. I don't know. I didn't like it. So I went with this instead. Okay, so this little scene is taking place inside of this tree trunk, but it's not just like an open garden scene. It's actually a solarium, conservatory, atrium, something like that, like an interior structure that is a bit abandoned. We're going to have just one window left. This is a product that I got off of Etsy, and I want to add a stained glass look to it. And my first thought was to use some Shrinky Dinks. One side of this is textured. This is where you create your design. The other side is smooth, and when you hit it with a heat gun and it shrinks down, it thickens up, hardens up, and it really does look kind of like glass. The thing about Shrinky Dinks is you need to make your original design about 3 times bigger than what your end product is going to be. And I wanted to just kind of show you that with this example. This is the actual size of the window, but you'll see how much this shrinks down. So I would have to do some measurements, make it 3 times bigger, shrink it down. It kind of sounds straightforward, but if you're somebody like me who hates measurements, and we've got a pattern here, so I got to make sure that all of my little triangles and stuff line up. Honestly, I was already bored by the thought of that. So I decide not to go the Shrinky Dink route, but it does look really cool. I then thought maybe I should make individual panes, and I was trying to get the size right, and I was already over it. But if you aren't working with an existing structure to begin with, and you want to make your own glass and come up with a design, I think something like this would be absolutely great, but you can see the difference. Look how big my original design was, and look how far it shrunk down. So basically what I decided to do is use the Shrinky Dink without the shrinky part of it. This is still really great to use because you have that textured side, and that's going to take the marker really well. It's not going to slide off like the slick, smooth surface. Now, why did I do this in 2 sections instead of just one strip of Shrinky Dink? You know, guys, sometimes I just like to waste my own time, do things that don't make sense. When I want to make some quick, easy water, I like to use hot glue. So this is just on some parchment paper, which the glue will not stick to. When it completely cools, you can pull it off, and then I will cut and adjust the size to fit inside my little well, or whatever that thing is. Now to paint it, I'm wiping down the surface of the hot glue with a paper towel. This can help the paint stick better. And spoiler alert, I ended up hating this. This looked nothing like water to me. I wanted to add a little bit of green for some algae. It looked like I was making a globe, and I could have just been painting a piece of cardboard or anything. You totally lost the translucent effect with the hot glue. So I'm gonna scrape a lot of this off to kind of make the water look a little bit more interesting. And then I'm going to use a puddle product. I really love this product because when it dries, it has kind of that reflective, wet look to it. Plus, it's dark and dirty looking, which is nice. It'll make this water look a little less pristine because this is a spooky scene. This isn't like a lovely pond in a valley or something. Like you saw me do with the well, I want to add a bit of moss or some sort of like green growth type stuff to our rocky structure. So I'm first just painting on some green acrylic paint in the areas where I want to add the moss, adding some glue, and then sprinkling on just a green grassy type product. time to work on the ground cover for our base. I often like to start with a bit of like a dirt type look, just in case whatever I end up doing you see through. I'd rather see something that looks like a little bit more natural looking than just some painted styrofoam. I also wanted to give it a bit of a floor, like maybe some stone, marble, something like that, because again, this is an interior scene like that atrium or observatory, whatever you want to call it. So I have a thin piece of XPS foam. This was just some scrap. I'm texturing it up. I'm going to do a bit of painting to make it look like these stone steps. And I'm not going to put them all over the base platform. We're just going to put a few here and there to give the idea that once this was a nice scene where you could walk through, and now it's really being taken over by the elements. For the rest of the base, I want to use some grass tufts. I think this will give it a look of like really overgrown grass. I have a whole bunch of different types. I will try to link them all, and I'm going to use a combination of a few of them. I get these floral stems at Michael's in the fall. I really hope they're gonna have them again this fall. They are great to use in your displays in a number of ways. You can use them as individual trees. I've used them as shrubs. Today, I'm gonna use them as some branches on the inside of my lantern, and then we'll add a little bit of mossy green detail on the outside as well. And the best way I found for attaching these was to add some hot glue to the stem, and then also on a few of the leafy mossy parts. Okay, so I absolutely love this. My only little issue is I'm not sure it's quite spooky enough. Like it's kind of lovely and cute, like a little skeleton fairy looking at a pond. So I'm thinking about upping the spooky factor. I have this little piece that I got from Etsy. It's a little too graphic, so we're just gonna kind of paint over this little detail. And I'm thinking this guy is gonna be crawling out of the pool. And I love this idea of this cute, lovely little skeleton looking down at the water, and he doesn't see his reflection. He sees this other thing trying to come out of the water. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Yes on the creepy guy or no? Thank you so much for joining me for the Summerween lantern. If you could, would you please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments what you guys are working on for Summerween. I look forward to seeing you next time. Happy creating!